On the SAT, the math section is worth half of your entire score, which means it's super important that you know what to expect. So here are 5 example problems to help you destroy the SAT math section. So here's the first example that we'll be doing, and we have an equation with 2 variables. It says if x equals 3, what is the value of y? So usually when we have equations like this, the idea is that you plug in numbers for x and then see what you get out for y. And that's what we're going to be doing in this problem. We know that x is equal to 3, so what we can do is we can replace the letter x with 3 in this equation, and then we'll see what we get for y when we solve for it. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, but instead of x, I'm going to write 3. And I'm putting it in parentheses because it's not 43. Instead, it's actually 4 times 3. A number and a letter next to each other means multiplication. So before we go and try to solve for y, I'm going to simplify as much as we can, and we can do 4 times 3, right? 4 times 3 is 12. So it's going to be 12 plus y equals 9. And now we just have an algebra problem where we try to get y by itself on this side of the equation. The only thing in its way is this 12. So we can do the opposite of 12, which is minus 12, on both sides. This will get y by itself. So 12 minus 12 is 0. Those cancel out. On the left side, we just have the letter y. And on the right, we have 9 minus 12. If you're ever confused about negative numbers, you could just use your calculator, or you can think of it as money. That's how I like to think of it. You gained $9 and then lost 12, so you're down $3. So our answer to this problem is y is equal to -3. All right, for our second problem, we have a word problem. These are very common on the SAT. So we have a guy named Jeff. He bought 7 pineapples for some reason, and they were each the same price. So what I like to do for these kinds of problems is I like to skip to the bottom and see what the question is. The question is asking what was the original price for 1 pineapple. So now that we know that, we can go and read the rest of the question and see what information will help us. So he bought 7 pineapples. He used a coupon for $17 off, and he paid $39. So we don't know the price for 1 pineapple. All it gives us is the total price. So why don't we find the original price in total and before we try to find the original price for 1 pineapple? So what was the original price? Well, he paid $39, but it looks like he also used a coupon for $17 off. So the original price must have been $17 higher than whatever he paid, right? So it looks like the original price was $56. Now the question is asking us what was the original price for 1 pineapple? This is in total, and it looks like he bought 7 of them. So to find the amount for each pineapple, let's just divide this by however many he bought, which is 7. And 56 divided by 7 is going to be $8. So it looks like our final price is $8 per pineapple. Okay, here we have another word problem, and classic, it's a bag of marbles. So in this bag of marbles, the ratio of red to blue is 24 to 8. It says if we added 6 red marbles to the bag, what must happen to the amount of blue marbles to maintain this ratio? So if you're not sure how ratios work, usually we write them with like a colon. So we would say like 24 to 8. And basically what this means is for every 24 red marbles that there have to be 8 blue marbles that go with it. So for example, let's say there were 48 red marbles in the bag. Well, that's double 24. So there would need to be 16 blue marbles because that's double of 8. So for every 24 red, there needs to be 8 blue. So we don't really care what's in it right now, right? We just know that they're adding 6 red marbles. We're adding 6 new ones, and it's asking how many new blue marbles do we need to add or possibly subtract. Well, for a ratio, because we're adding one, we're going to need to add the other. That's how a ratio works. So we're not going to be subtracting any blue marbles. But how many blue marbles do we need to add? Well, the way that I would go about this is I would think about what part of 24 is 6. In other words, we can just divide, right? So if we divide 24 divided by 6, we get 4. So basically 6 is 1/4 of 24. So if we're adding 1/4 of 24 for red, we also need to add 1/4 of 8 for blue. So what is 1/4 of 8? Well, if we divide 8 by 4, we divide 8 into fourths, then we'll get 8 divided by 4, which is 2. Basically what this means is we need to add 2 new blue marbles if we're adding 6 new red marbles. Another way you can think about it that honestly might be easier is to simplify this ratio because this is a little more complicated than it needs to be. So I'm noticing these can both be divided by 8. I can go divided by 8 on both sides of the ratio. 24 divided by 8 is 3, and 8 divided by 8 is 1. So we could have also just called this ratio 3 to 1. So now we can see a lot easier that if we're adding 6 red marbles, we'll need to add 2 blue marbles because 6 is double of 3, so we need to add double of 1, which is 2. So that's another way to think about it. Okay, this one is an algebra one, and some of the harder questions on the SAT are going to make you think about problems in a way you haven't really thought of before. So it says we have an equation below. G is a constant. A constant is just a fancy word for a number, like 7 or 12. And it says the equation has no solution. What is the value of G? Now, this isn't something that we just solve. It's not like we're just solving for X. Instead, we have to kind of think differently. What makes an equation have no solution? Well, if you remember back to if you ever had to solve no solution equations in algebra, whenever you solve it, it always ends up with something weird, like 0 is equal to 6 or 0 is equal to 22, right? Like these are never true. 0 is not equal to 6, 0 is not equal to 22. So if you're solving a math equation and you end up with something like this, then that means there's no solution. So it seems like what we need to do is we need to figure out what number G should equal to make the left side equal 0. I think that would make sense because then it would be 0 equals 48. Well, let's just ignore the 16gx part for a second. Let's just write the rest of the equation. That's how I think we should think of it. So negative 2x plus something, right? Something is going to equal 48. Now, if we want this left side to equal 0, then what should this question mark be? Well, I think it should be positive 2x because negative 2x plus positive 2x, those are opposites, those cancel out to 0. So if this question mark was equal to 2x, then we would have 0 equals 48. And that's definitely going to have no solution. Now let's bring back what this actually is and then see if we can make it 2x. It says it's 16gx. And we need to figure out what g is equal to turn this into 2x. Well, remember that this is all multiplication. So basically 16g needs to be 2, and then x is going to be x. So how do we make 16 times g the number 2? Well, 16 times what is 2? That's what we're looking for. 16 times something is equal to 2. And the way that you can do that is actually, if you want to solve it like an algebra problem, because this is multiplication, let's do the opposite, which is division. Let's divide both sides by 16. So the 16s are going to cancel out. On the left side, we are going to have our missing number, which is g. And on the right, we're going to have 2 over 16. That's a fraction that we can simplify, right? We can divide both the top and the bottom by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. Which means that g is equal to 1 over 8. Now, I know that might have seemed like a lot, so let's do a sanity check of our answer, right? If we replaced the letter g here with 1 over 8, then does it equal 2x? And yes, it does, right? 16 times 1/8, that's the same as 16 divided by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2. So this is equal to 2x, which is what we wanted here in the question mark. So if g is equal to 1 over 8, the equation has no solution. So that's our answer here. Okay, this is definitely going to be one of the weirder ones that we do in this video. We're going to have to combine our algebra and geometry skills for this one. So it says that lines A and B are parallel. And we're just going to pretend like I didn't forget to put the A and B in, so I wrote them down there. We're just going to, that didn't happen. It says that x is equal to 10k, which is already weird because we don't know what k is equal to. We don't know what x is equal to, right? Like this is just weird. Y is equal to 8k plus 22. And so we need to find the value of z, which was not in any of the other parts of the problem. So what is going on? Well, one thing that might help is to just write down what information we have on the diagram. So x is equal to 10k, right? And y is equal to 8k plus 22. Now, let's go ahead and use our geometry knowledge for this, right? What we have here, x and y, we have vertical angles. So there's a geometry rule that says that whenever you have an x shape and the two angles that are across from each other, those are always going to be equal. So these two angles are equal, and then, for example, if we knew these ones, these two would be equal. So what information can we get from this knowing that these two are equal? Well, if we were to write this as an algebra problem, we could say that 10k is equal to 8k plus 22. So that's probably what it wants us to do, but let's think about it. What is that going to accomplish for us? Well, we'll find out what k is equal to. I mean, we're trying to figure out z, right? So I don't know how it's helpful to know what k is. Well, if we knew what k was, then we would actually know what x and y are, because we could just plug in whatever the answer is for k back into these k's here, and then we would figure out what x and y are. So I think that's what I'm going to do first. So let's try to solve for k, find out what x and y are, and then move on. So how do we solve for k? Remember, we want to get it by itself on one side of the equation, and well, it's on both sides of the equation, so we need to get rid of one of them. I'm going to get rid of the 8k. So let's subtract it from both sides of the equation. So these cancel out, the 8k minus 8k, that's 0. On the right, we just have 22. And on the left, we have 10k's, then subtracting 8k's, 10 minus 8 is 2. So we have 2k's equal to 22. Now this is multiplication here, 2 times k. So let's do the opposite, which is division. And I'm kind of running out of room here, but we'll just deal with it. So the 2's cancel out. And on the left, we just have the letter k. And on the right, we have 22 divided by 2, which is 11. So we now know that k is equal to 11. And remember that the reason we're doing this is to find out what x and y are. Now remember that we figured out earlier that these are equal to each other. So we don't actually need to plug in k into both. We know they're equal. So let's just do it for x. That's going to be easier. Plugging in 11 for k gives us 10 times 11, which is 110 degrees. So now we know that x is equal to 110 degrees, and y, which is a vertical angle, is also 110 degrees. So let's go ahead and clean up what we've got here. So now if this was a multiple choice question, I guarantee you 110 would be one of the options. But you always want to reread the question. It says, what is the value of z? Now we might be able to look at the diagram and be like, does this look like it would also be 110? But actually, no, it doesn't, because it's the fancy term is an acute angle, but really it just means it's smaller than the other angles. This probably isn't 110. Now, there's multiple ways you can think about this. One way is you might know the geometry rule that says that y and z are consecutive interior angles, and those always add up to 180. So you can figure it out that way. I guess the other way you can think about it is that they're like corresponding angles. Like, here, let me show you. We have two x's here, right? We have a top x and we have a bottom x. And basically, the two angles that correspond with each other, that go with each other in the same spot, are equal. So y here is a bottom right angle, that's 110. So the bottom right angle down here also has to be 110 degrees. So now to figure out z, we know that a straight line has 180 degrees, right? That's an important geometry rule. Well, we have a straight line right here. This is a straight line. So this whole thing should be 180 degrees. So if this whole thing is 180, but this angle is taking up 110, what's left for z? Well, we can do 180 minus 110, and that's going to give us 70 degrees, which means that z is going to equal 70 degrees. And even if you didn't know that, a lot of rules in geometry have 180 as like the magic number. So when in doubt, if it's not equal, it probably adds up to 180. So these are just some examples of what SAT math problems really look like. But obviously, I haven't been able to go over every type of math problem that could show up. So if you want to keep practicing and keep studying, then this is the video you'll want to watch next. If you have any questions about any of the problems in this video, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer your question. Thanks for watching and good luck on the SAT. You've got this.